Hey, how's it going out there today, everybody? Hope everybody's having a great day. It is July 9th. I'm in Woodstock, Illinois. I'm going to talk to you today about a load I brought up from North Carolina. A load of produce, about 41,000 pounds of cucumbers. And I brought it up in the illustrious Freightliner Sweat Lodge because my AC is out again. This will be the third time this year my AC has went out. Pretty much replaced every component. I believe it's an electrical issue at this point because one minute it blows hot air, one minute it blows cold air. There's no rhyme or reason to it. So it was a very rough night's sleep last night because my APU is out because the alternator's out on it. So, early July, no AC, rough night's sleep. Kind of low energy today. It's gonna be a high Mountain Dew consumption type of day. Maybe I should put that in a variable cost on this next load because there's gonna be a lot of Mountain Dew drunk. So let's get to the numbers of the load, guys. It was a 1,070 mile load, 80 miles empty, 990 miles loaded. I counted 2 stop, 1 delivery. Second stop didn't load anything, or the second pickup didn't load anything. They hydro cooled the product because they loaded the product that straight out of the field and then boxed it, set it out on a concrete pad in the sun on a 90-degree day in North Carolina. They loaded it. It was about 100-degree average on the load of the pallets. Not happy about that. Lost all my pre-cool on my trailer. Then the reefer ran wide open pretty much the whole trip. They took it to hydro cool, which is pretty cool. Never been there before, but it's basically a big awning with docks, or what looks like would be docks, but instead of docks, it's just about a 45-foot pipe that leans out and you back into it. You back up and it goes into your trailer. It's got a sprinkler head about every 6 inches or so. It dumps about 1,000 gallons of water a minute onto the produce because they're bulk boxed, and it cooled it down. It got it down to about 50 degrees, I would say, after the hydro cool. But the reefer still had to run hard because it's trying to cool product that's not cool. I hate when they load produce hot because the trailer's not made to cool produce. The trailer's made to keep product cool, not cool it. So when you have something that is breaking down, like the minute they pick it, that produce is like, it's disintegrating or whatever you say. It's producing heat because it's basically fermenting in the trailer. So not only are you trying to overcome that, you're overcoming the temperature that they loaded it at to begin with. So these loads are very hard on a reefer unit. But in a bipolar market, I took what I can get. So anyway, 1,070 miles, very low mile per average on this load. I just could not get it moving. The first day was horrific. I ran as hard as I could, and I averaged about 40 miles per hour, just backups and traffic and construction, and it was a mess of a day. But it got better yesterday, a little bit better, so made up a little bit of the horrible, horrible mile per average. But anyway, 1,070 miles, load paid $2,100. That's $1.96 to the carrier. That brings it down to $1,680 to the truck. It's $1.57 a mile. I'm not happy about hauling heavy loads. And honestly, the name of my game is to get back to Minnesota and get customer freight that pays good versus, so I want to hurry up and get back, but the load's going straight from North Carolina back to Minnesota. I was looking at like $1.70 a mile to the carrier, and I just couldn't justify it. So I took this load coming here, which I had to split. It doesn't cost me any days because I got another load I'm picking up today that delivers in the morning in Minnesota. But, sometimes you lose a day or two when you do that, and that adds up at the end of the year when you start splitting those. But I just couldn't justify that rate. This rate's not much better. I got another load I'm going to pick up later that's about $2 a mile load. But yeah, this freight market is bipolar, and I'll touch on that more at the end of the video. I want to talk about that a little bit, but it's 38-degree continuous load. Truck fuel 383 dollars. Reefer fuel, $158 in reefer fuel. That's 54 gallons of reefer fuel, which is a lot on a 2-day run. $68 in tolls. There's just no way of getting around the Chicago tolls on this run. Paid West Virginia toll turnpike some tolls. $63 for a hotel the night before last. Pulling through the mountains, the truck was just so hot, no AC. At one point, I used my pulse temperature radar laser temperature thing. It was 108 degrees in this truck, so I was not trying to wait for it to cool down because I knew it wasn't going to cool down in any kind of time. So I just went across the street to the Super 8 and got a hotel, which makes variable cost $672 minus what I had to the truck of $1,680. That leaves $1,080 after variable cost on a 2-day, maybe 2.5-day run. Not a very good paying run. This rate market, guys, we'll talk about it a little bit. I call it the bipolar rate market now, because and technology is the reason for it. If you don't believe me, think about it a little bit. All the carriers, all the brokers, they all know where we're at, because DAT and Truck Stop and all the other load boards, the carrier load boards, the C.H. Robinson load boards, they're all tracking us, and they all know where we're at, and they can use that to their advantage, and they can, there was some consistency to rates. I'll give you a prime example. I do a lot of Chicago to Minneapolis and back. That's a market I know. That's a market I understand. Seasonality has a little bit to do with that market, but the fact of the matter is, even with seasonality, you can't predict your rate within 20 to 25%. I was looking at loads Monday from Chicago to Minneapolis. We're looking at like $1,250, probably an average, I'm going to say average of like $1,100. Early in the morning, it's a little more. As the day goes, it kind of dipped off a little bit because a lot of the loads got took. I was like, okay, I'm kind of looking in that range to get back to Minnesota. That's going to be pretty good. Got up yesterday morning, started looking. Basically couldn't find anything over $1,000. I took the load. I called about one load I really wanted, $850. I mean, it was a light load and it was a reasonable temperature, but the day before it was 20 to 25% more than that. And I ended up that load was already covered. Called about the load I'm going to get. 40,000 pound load going 470 miles, paying like $9. I got them up to $950 on it, just because. And the only really bargaining tool I had is because it's negative 10 degrees, and I'm like, can you help me out with reefer fuel a little bit? Because negative 10, July is kind of a hard temperature to get to. And I use that as my bargaining tool because I know a lot of carriers, like owner-operator carriers, aren't going to mess with negative 10 in, the middle of July. So I had a little bit of a bargaining tool there. But for the most part, your bargaining tools aren't what they used to be, because they know where every truck is. They know where they're going. They know when they're going to be there. I mean, and, it's not like back in the day where you had to sit around with a pen and paper. It's all put into a system one time, and then the algorithms and everything takes over, and it all knows like where you're going to be, the capacity that's available. It knows it all. It knows it all, and it can really, really fine tune the rates. And I think that's why we're seeing rates go down. I still think rates are. I still think overall for the country, what I see, I still think rates are coming down. And that's spot market freight. That's just what I see. That's what I believe. I believe there's certain outliers that are doing a little better for whatever reason. Maybe industry's picked up in that area or whatever. But overall, I'm finding it harder to do better rates than I was a year ago, or 10 years ago. I forgot when I started being owner-operator, like 7 years ago, 6 years ago. I find it harder to get those better rates now, because you're not going to catch somebody with a load that they can't get moved as easily now, because they've got so much information, you know. It's like, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the market we're dealing with these days. So you got to keep that in mind when you're, you know, booking freight. And you can't just say, you can't just call up a broker and say, I want, you know, 50% more than what you got it listed for, or, you know, what the market's saying, you know, the rate is in that lane, because you're not going to get it. You know, like, they know what's out there. They know what's available. I mean, you might catch them if you've got some bargaining. You know, like, you've got to really refine your negotiating skills these days, because you can't just throw out silly numbers anymore and, you know, get a good response. I mean, they're not going to do it because they got too much information. Unless you know, you really got something going your way. But, you know, things I use now are like the temperature. I try to use that as the bargaining tool, or you know, if it's consistently going into a dead area, I try to use that. But then again, you know, that they don't play much on that anymore because of the information they have. So it's becoming a real thinking game. You know, you can't just fall into it blindly and think you're going to make money anymore. It's really about a refined business, and I'm not saying you can't do it. There's a lot of guys out there doing it and doing it well, but you got to be on point. That's all I'm saying is you got to be on point. You can't be lazy. You can't be you know, naive about your situation. But yeah, guys, that's my little rant on the market. It's where I think it's at. If you disagree, let me know. You know, we're living in the bipolar market from what I see these days. It's you never know what you're going to get on any given day at any given time. You just got to do the best you can with what you got. But I'm going to get off here, guys. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, share if you don't mind, and take care of one another. Bye.